Do. Okay. Now you can hear us. Great. Wonderful.
Hey, Adam, do that again. Do that thing
The
again. You
podcast
started it.
is ready. Now this time for real.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, the setting was set to output sound from a different bus other than our master bus. I don't know why. Very strange. We had vMix crash on us last night in the middle of recording the Acolyte, so that was also a really good time. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, really good stuff.
Yes.
What I was saying earlier was we will be talking about the Acolyte, obviously. That's why I'm sure people are here. We may or may not kind of tiptoe around some spoilers because I'm assuming there's going to be some people here in the audience who have not seen the first 2 episodes yet.
hmm
If you haven't, just be forewarned that we might talk about some things that might spoil some ththings lightly. We'll try to avoid going like into deep spoiler territory. Just FYI.
Okay.
So
I like that. I like that. I also think, Lo Rosario says, no, Augie. Augustine is busy tonight. He's had some plans, and
yeah.
sometimes our plans fall on
First
the
of all,
podcast night.
I have not heard anyone call him Augie in like
Yeah, a
7
long
years.
time.
That is
That's
weird.
not a that's not a name I've heard in a long,
Long time.
long time.
I
Yeah.
remember, I think we were doing YouTube. We must have been doing YouTube for like 3 years or 4 years, maybe even longer.
Mhm.
And he didn't even say it to me. He said it to somebody else. He was like, "Yeah, I hate it when people call me Augie." And I looked
Yeah.
at him and I was like, "You've let me go. You've let me
Yeah.
go and make this has been my routine for 4 years. How could you?" He's like,
It
"That's
was
okay." I'm
like
like, "No."
It was like when Stephen Yun was on Conan O'Brien, and Conan told a story of like, "You've been on the show before. I announced you. Then you were on a show a second time or something, or like then we hung out. Then we went and like grabbed something to eat, and like we spent the day together or something. And then at the very like end of us hanging out, Stephen leaned over and he goes, "By the way, it's not like Yuan, it's Yun." And
Right.
Conan was mortified where he's like, "You didn't tell me this." And Stephen Yun, it's like a famous gif now, like him where he was just like,
Yeah.
didn't tell you, man. Like
Oh,
it's so
that's what that
funny.
gif is from? That's
Yeah,
hilarious.
yeah,
That's too funny. Because
yeah,
I also thought for a long time it was Stephen Ewan. And then, yeah,
yeah,
I at some point I saw that it was Stephen Yun, and I was like, well, I was doing that all
yeah.
wrong.
Yep. Anyways, so yeah, Augustine is out tonight, but we have like a fun activity that we're doing. I don't know if we can talk about it until after, because I think there is an embargo that we can't talk about until after it
Yeah.
happens. I think then we can freely talk about it tomorrow after like
I
in
think
the
it's after
afternoon at some
2.
point, 2 p.m. So
Yeah.
and it sucks. I've got to do something from 2 to like 4. So I have to wait until 4 and then I'll be free and then I'll be able to talk about it. But
Um,
the three of us are doing a cool thing tomorrow, which is
yeah.
exciting and vague. And that's so that's our activity for the week.
Yeah,
And yeah.
It's kind of Hall H-y for a distributor.
Mm.
So I think that'll be fun. We don't normally do those sorts of things. We don't normally cover those sorts of things either, but it'll be kind of fun to go to something that we've never been to before and share, once we're able to, we will definitely share like what the hell the thing was. I think it'll be kind of
Yeah,
kind
for
of a
sure.
cool thing to do. Yeah.
For sure. I
I'm
agree.
excited.
And I really snap. I can't believe we've already got a couple super chats. First up, the first one, Senator kicking us off, $2. Talking about the Acolyte. I'm quite intrigued. Show looks great. Heart emoji. Love y'all. Thank you so much, Senator. And Maura Lee. Maura's coming in with 1999. Love and appreciate all the content, especially on Patreon. That's awesome. Thank you so much. That's great. We really appreciate it. Yeah. Everything good on your end, Adam? Everything okay?
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Anytime you take a one headphone off, I'm like, there's either something not a big deal happening or like a tech thing
either
is
there's a
about to
fire or
spark
it's
and
fine.
yeah. Yeah.
And or there's a dog barking in the
That's all right.
window.
That's okay. That's okay.
Jesus Christ.
That's a that's a normal sound that doesn't stress me out. But if I hear like a whirring mechanical, that's bad.
The computer blue screens again.
Yeah.
It's good
Um,
times.
oh, this is so cool. Hannah said that she went to a con this weekend and got to meet author Timothy Zahn, who created
Oh,
Grand
nice.
Admiral Thrawn like 30
Yeah.
years ago and has continued to work with Star Wars since, and that's so cool. Okay, dude, so we saw The Acolyte last night, 2 episodes. Um, have you seen the internet today, talk about it a little bit, seeing what the response is. I mean, I know we don't have to talk about the shitheads. You know what I'm talking about. By the way, just a side note, I think it's so funny when they fake complain about something because they're not really mad, they're not really invested. It's all fake, outrage, fake. But then they point something out, and then the entire internet goes, "Yeah, that was in the original trilogy and in the prequels." I love when that happens.
I know.
That's great. It's great.
I I don't
It's
know.
great.
I don't know why I decided to do this, but just for like my own entertainment or maybe suffering, who knows at this point.
Yeah.
It was like in my recommended, and it was people talking negative things about the Acolyte, and I was like, let me just watch 5 minutes and see what these knuckleheads are
No.
talking about.
Yeah.
And it's to the point where like
Yeah, it's not real.
I think there's one valid, like there are a couple like valid things that I've heard people say generally,
Sure.
but I've seen people articulate it in a much better way
Oh,
than
yeah.
knuckleheads who are like, this completely ruins the canon for me. It completely ruins the fantasy for me. I'm like, first of
Oh,
all,
boy.
they have fucking light up swords and there's robots that shoot lasers out of their wieners. Give me a break. It's so dumb. Like, Star Wars
Yeah.
is by far one of the weirdest things that
Yeah.
ever was greenlit, probably in film history. The fact that it even exists
Yeah.
is a fucking miracle.
I
So
know.
the fact
But,
that
like,
like
despite that, I wanna go
yeah.
back to you mentioned, like, the sort of valid conversation and criticisms that people
Mhm.
are having, the valid praise and, like, love that
Yeah.
I'm seeing for these 2 episodes, and again, for the people that saw, like, the first 4 episodes, they're talking about those generally
Mhm.
as well, the first half of the show. I saw a few YouTube video reviews I thought were good and, like, kind of talking about the show. I really like Dan Murrell's conversation. I think he was
I do
somebody who
too.
leaned more on right? He leaned more on, like, he didn't love it, thought it was just fine, but talked about his experience with the previous
Mhm.
Star Wars shows and his sort
And
of
actually
take on the
knows how to
franchise.
articulate his thoughts, not like a
Dan's great.
psychopath.
Dan's great, And it's funny though, because even he brought up the nitpicky thing, and he was just like, "I know that's dumb, but like, but his point of a franchise like this having so much pressure on it, I think it's a fair point, but I also think
Yeah.
it's like we're all adult men in our 30s and 40s watching these
Right.
shows, and not applying the same level of analysis to the
Mhm.
movie we saw when we were 8. That,
Absolutely not.
not to say those movies weren't great, they were. But like you
Mhm.
said, they had robots shooting lasers out of their dicks or whatever. Like that's Star
Yeah.
Wars.
Yeah.
So yeah, what's your takeaway from like how are you feeling 24 hours later? You're into a new Star Wars show. How are you
Mhm.
feeling? Are you sort of re-energized with like, getting back into Star Wars as it were? Are you trying to like, do some more further research? Or are you just like, okay, we'll see how next week goes and next week goes and so on?
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of going with the flow at this point, and a lot of it is just like my own time that I can devote to Star Wars right now. But also, it's I don't want to get so deep into the weeds that I may potentially reveal too much for myself about characters. And I know it's a lot of it is
For
uncharted
sure.
territory, but I like going into a lot of things, knowing as little as possible. Even when it is things that I really, really, really love, I almost especially don't want to know that much. So yeah, so I'm kind of going at it one episode at a time. I still feel like 24 hours removed, I still think that I wish we lived in a world where the episodes could be longer, even if they were not a full hour, even if they were like 45 minutes, but like solid
Mhm.
45 minutes of actual show, and then, let's say 3 minutes of credits. Because sometimes feel like the episodes get cliffhangered because they have to because of time, not necessarily
Mm,
because for me it feels like this is a natural point to stop.
I see.
But it hasn't ruined my experience of experiencing the story.
Yeah.
And even like the little things that I was thinking about today that I was kind of questioning while we were watching, but I wasn't giving it attention on camera, mostly because I was like, I want to sit with these sorts of things, like
Mhm.
there's moments that happen where a character does something to maybe defend someone, and then something happens to them, and I'm thinking to myself like, wouldn't this character know that this action is going to happen? So you start to really, it gets to the point where you really do start to dissect every decision that the creators make, and sometimes
Yeah.
that's good, and sometimes I just don't like to consume my media that way, where
Right.
at that point it feels like play 5 minutes, pause. Okay, so here's what I think is wrong with with the first 5 minutes. Play another five,
Yeah, no,
pause, blah
don't
blah
do
blah.
that.
And it's like
Don't do that.
I don't like that. I don't want to do that. For me, the experience is
Yeah.
what's the whole thing? How am I feeling about the whole
Yes.
episode or the whole
You
season? So
you were just talking before went live, we were just having a chat, Adam, and you were like, "I just saw this movie," and you were analyzing it and talking about it with your own perspective from it, but you had seen the entire movie. Like you went to the theater last night and saw this film. And so I think it is the same with a project like this, where it's like we've only seen 2 episodes of 8 episodes. I want to have great, deep, interesting conversations about what the show is, but I think it's only fair to like give it the full 8, even if it's TV and TV has different requirements, or it's like, yeah, but you got to be able to hook an audience in the first episode and expand the story in the second episode. And all that stuff is true, but also this isn't TV like normal TV. This is a TV show that has no commercials. This is a TV show that is on a paid subscription service that I'm already all the way in on for a franchise, for a brand. Like I want to be as hands off with my notions of what it should be, and just kind of like you're saying, just like let the story take us where it's going to go. But once it's done, it's the same thing. Like we were having conversations about X-Men 97 and the whole show, once the show was done and the direction that it went in. And yeah, and that's the other thing too. Another thing you mentioned was just like, do we want to be the types of people that do so much research and speculate? And like, if I'm into Star Wars, could I come up with who I think might be the big bad? Yeah, but I don't want to, because I don't necessarily want to ruin it for me if I get too attached to something that I think is gonna be the thing I wanna see. I don't wanna do that to myself, and I want to try and be surprised, and I think it's a little bit different when I think the reason people speculate a bunch for, like, Marvel movies is because if there's a character who shows up who's a named character, "Hi, I'm such and such so and so." If that character has like an interesting story in the comic book, then there's the potential. It's like, oh, they might weave in that storyline, which means that this character could interact with this character and it could bring about this moment. And there's a potential there for that. And I think some of that is true with Star Wars, but it's different. It's like I don't want to see a trailer and then try to, frankly, and I love those guys, they're great guys, new rock stars the shit out of something and like, like figure out and kind of solve what this is. I want to, and that's not all they do. They certainly don't. They have great analysis. I watched their video for the first 2 episodes as well. Eric Voss broke it down and really showed like, he also, on top of Easter eggs and references and potential like links to things, he also talks about things that are happening in the story as we're seeing it that you might have missed that like are thematically really rich and really cool. And you're like, oh yeah, I didn't notice those parallels and that kind of thing. So, but generally speaking, I think that internet nerd culture tends to fall into that rabbit hole of like, oh, who's going to be the bad guy in Fantastic Four and what does it mean
yeah,
for Secret Wars? And it's like,
exactly.
dude, I'm not trying
You're
to
like five
solve
steps
that.
ahead, man. Just
I,
one thing at a
you know,
time.
I don't want to do that, but like when in the TV show The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, when that new character showed up that was like Sam's partner, I was excited because I'm like, oh, in the comic books, he becomes the Falcon. I think
Right,
that's
right,
going to,
right,
so those kinds of things are like generally speaking, like, oh, I think that because they cast this actor to play this character, this might happen
right.
because I have the familiarity with the Marvel Comics universe. But with Star Wars, there is so much lore, and then there's like expanded universe, and then there's the sort of canon lore now. And I don't want to be the person that's like, I got the only 5 characters that the big bad could be, right?
Hmm.
That May is reporting to. I'm like, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Um, I guess I save that energy for Marvel stuff. I don't know. It's just it's kind of different. So
Yeah, and also think that like my relationship with Star Wars in a lot of similar ways, I also just don't treat it like a comic book universe because it's not.
right,
I
it's
know
not.
that it obviously has books and comic books, of course it does, because that's just the world that we kind of live in now with all these big properties is that they expand into other mediums. But
Hmm.
I think that's the big thing for me is I don't treat it like it's a comic book universe. I don't watch The Acolyte. And of course, like it's fun to speculate. Like, yeah, it would
Yeah,
be awesome
yeah,
if
yeah, yeah.
Yoda did show up because he is
Yeah,
alive at this point in time. He is a
sure.
Jedi on the council. So of course he's the one character who has like who is the most likely to show up out of anything in Star Wars. But I'm not sitting here going like, well, they have Darth Plagueis and is Palpatine young. To me, it's
Mhm.
like not about that. To me, it's about what are the new characters you're giving me? What are their arcs? What are they doing?
Mhm.
What's their purpose to exist
Mhm.
on the show? What are they doing that is affecting the Star Wars universe on a story level? And
Mhm.
what is Star Wars going to do with those threads once this show is over? Are they going to make
Mhm.
another season? Are they going to do some sort of a comic book continuation that's, that's loosely tied in? What's the plan there? But I don't really think about those things until after the show is done. When
Right.
we're in the show and
Right.
we're watching the story, I'm really just truthfully focused on the story. And I even have seen, people talking about the Jedi and how they maybe differ from the prequels and how they differ from these stories and da 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 da
Mhm.
da. I think it's super valid to not just copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste the characteristics and the motivations of what the Jedi are in the prequel trilogy, in the sequel. Well, they don't exist in the sequels, but and in other canon, basically. I think it's okay if
Mhm.
the Acolyte takes ideas that were presented in the High Republic and maybe tilts them and shifts them a little bit. As long as at the end of it, which it won't, we don't have to necessarily worry about it in the Acolyte. Whatever stories follow that, it'll eventually morph into what becomes the Phantom Menace. So
Right.
they do have a lot of runway to have some creative freedom. And I think that to me is sometimes frustrating when you're trying to have a conversation with anybody online about anything, is like you have to remember that creators want to create.
Yeah.
Sometimes the things that they create work really well. Sometimes it doesn't land with everybody,
Mhm.
but like you can say the same thing about the Star Wars original trilogy. You can say that about the
Mhm.
prequels and the sequels too. It's like just the recent just sort of the recent narrative around Star Wars in the last few years, since I think mostly since The Last Jedi, I would say, it's
Yeah.
been either completely one way or completely another way. And I feel like before that, it was really mixed. There was a lot of like mixed discussions and people could have normal conversations, but whatever. But I also feel like people, for the most part, they allowed the
Uh-huh.
creators to have like freedom. Once we got to the prequels, I don't know, it kind of changed a little bit. But now
It
everybody loves the
did.
prequels. So
I
it's
know. Isn't
so
that
strange to
interesting?
me. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? You've got the lead actor of, The Acolyte freaking out, getting a message from Hayden Christensen. You've got, the showrunner of the show talking about, the influence of the prequels. I think that's so fascinating because, yeah, I remember being a kid and a young teenager, seeing those movies come out and seeing the internet rear its ugly head and turn into it was kind of a proto version of what the internet is today. It was nasty, dude. It was mean. People were awful to everybody. If you liked those movies, you were a baby and an idiot. And if you didn't like those movies, you were a baby and an idiot. And yeah, that was it was wild to see people and I was myself included. I was somebody who was like, I don't know if I was necessarily like a troll and talking about them online, but I remember having conversations with my friends and thinking, "Oh, I don't think that these worked, and this is why," and blah blah blah. And was I as articulate as I am now? No, dude. I was like 13 or 12 or whatever, so I probably said that they sucked. Um, but I also had a chip on my shoulder because I was always a Spider-Man guy. And I remember
Yeah.
as those movies were coming out,
Oh, Attack of the Clones and
I
Spider-Man at the box office.
that was a big deal, Adam. That was a bit 2002. I felt
And I
if I
was
can
on the
borrow a
opposite
song,
end. I was rooting for
I
Attack of the
know.
Clones.
I know, and if I can borrow a song from the soundtrack, I felt vindicated. But I remember one specific
uh,
thing of, like, my experience with, like, hardcore Star Wars fans is that I was like, "I'm really into Star Wars. I liked the action in the prequels, but I love the action in the Gendy shorts,"
oh yeah.
and I was
Oh
like,
my
"Oh,
god.
so that" like and I love those because my comic book encyclopedia brain was like, "Oh, so those are the upper limits of what a Jedi
Mm,
can do." We never
right.
saw Sam Jackson do that in the movies, but then
Yeah.
his Mace Windu character kicks ass. I went, "Oh, okay. They're incredibly powerful
Totally.
characters, but you never see that." And I remember having a conversation with a guy in high school who was a hardcore Star Wars fan, and it really kind of soured me on being a Star Wars fan because I was like,
Mm,
I think Spider-Man could take on, uh, um, Obi-Wan Kenobi. I think that'd be a great fight. And this dude was like the most arrogant, pretentious, like, "You're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about." And I was like, "Hang on, hang on, hang on, hang on." I said, "Jango Fett is a dude, a skilled dude, but he is a bounty hunter with no superhuman powers or tie into the Force, but he has jetpack, gadgets, grappling hook, guns, flamethrowers, whatever." Went toe to toe with Obi-Wan Kenobi, also arguably in his prime, the Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan. And I'm like, Jango Fett could take on Batman, vice versa. It's a dude, really skilled, fighter, gadgets, weaponry, whatever. And I'm like, I have comic book proof that Spider-Man could take on Batman and probably whoop him because he has superpowers. Like, he has to pull his punches, but that's a great fight. Batman versus Spider-Man. That's a fair fight, if that. And this guy was like, "No, you don't understand Star Wars. You don't understand the Jedi." And I was just like, "Oh my God." Like, I was like, "I'm glad Spider-Man 1 beat Star Wars at the box office, you jerk." Anyway, it was a weird time then, and there was definitely a lot of, as a young dude, parents from Mexico, getting into nerdy stuff and getting in
Mhm.
onto the internet. I had a lot of Mexican friends growing up in Southern California. I had a lot of white friends, a lot of white guy friends. And you start seeing the internet how, like, the racist people are coming out and how they feel about Star Wars because what they feel reaffirms their
Right.
core beliefs or whatever. So you're like, "Oh, I don't know, this is kind of weird. This is kind of this." And those same conversations are happening now, but they're all
Mhm.
magnified because the internet has turned into the
Yeah.
recruitment place for
For
that ideology. And it's just like, I see
yeah.
people complain about stuff and I go, it's not real. If these people would have my begrudging respect, if they, in their same stance, could say like, "But The Last Jedi had some fantastic direction, really great performance." You know what I mean? And they
Yeah.
never do that.
Yeah.
It like you said, it's
No,
either all or nothing.
totally.
They will not talk about the art direction of this show. Every single thing about these projects they think is bad, done by untalented, undeserving people. And it's usually because a lot of those people working on it are like women showrunners, women directors, Bryce Dallas Howard's directing it, it's Robert
Yeah.
Rodriguez doing Book of Boba Fett. It's like all this new crew of people, not just George Lucas, but or Dave Filoni, but new
Right.
people.
Mhm.
And they're like Kathleen Kennedy this and I'm a misogynist that and blah blah
Yeah.
blah. It's exhausting.
It is.
Um, but there's still valid things to talk about even with these first two episodes.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
I
and
think
I think and that's
I'm with you. I'm with you.
yeah, and that to me is kind of the bummer, like I posted, was it this morning? I was either this morning or last night. I was like, watch the first two episodes. There's a lot that's got me kind of like roped in. I'm intrigued by it. I want to
Oh,
keep
yeah,
watching, blah blah blah. And there was just, of course, I would say if there were, let's say, 8 responses, 7 of them were positive, and then one was like soy boy. And I'm like,
the
okay,
worst. Yeah,
let's
just
okay. What okay. What kind of conversation do you want to have? What you
yeah,
oh, you don't
none,
want to have one. Oh, you don't. Okay,
no,
cool.
no,
Then just
no,
go
they
fuck
don't.
yourself. I don't know what to tell you.
They're they're just dumb little bitches. That's all it
Yeah.
is. They don't know how to do anything else.
Yeah,
And it's
and that's the thing that I think is super frustrating, and it's really changed. Truthfully, it has changed how I experience the shows that we watch. It's also
100%,
it's also changed my enthusiasm for wanting to watch these shows
100%,
to the
100%.
point where like sometimes when a show's coming out, in my head, I'm like, I would rather just watch this on my own at 6 o'clock
Mhm,
on a Wednesday night on my projector,
mhm.
not have to worry about recording shit, not have
Not
to worry
say
about
anything
putting
on the
out
internet.
anything, not having to
Yeah.
tweet anything,
But
like
just
which
hold it,
sucks.
and then if you meet your buddy on the weekend and you go grab drinks or something, "Hey, did you see that thing?" "Yeah, I did." "Oh, let's talk about it." That's the
Exactly.
dream.
That's
That's
the
the
dream.
dream.
We basically would be doing a podcast, but it would never go live. We would just sit in a room and talk.
Mwah, the dream. Um, Adam, we got a super chat here from Easy Rider, $10.
Ooh, thank
Easy Rider
you.
says, "Hey, homies, I won't be able to watch live tonight, but I got a question. Will you guys react to Ted Lasso, one of the best shows of all time?" I'm gonna say no immediately, right off the bat, no. Uh,
Yeah,
great show. It's
the Blu-ray for the whole series is coming out,
yeah,
and I've actually watched all of season 1 and 2, and
yeah,
I think we started up season 3, but we're not
yeah,
done. So I think you've seen it, right,
great show.
Hector? Or
Every
have you?
episode, great show. Great
Yeah,
show.
and I think Augustine also binge watched it like
Mhm,
a year or so ago. So
mhm.
yeah, no.
Yeah, but it's not because
But a good
it's not a
question.
great show.
No,
A great
no.
question. It's because we have too many back burners, and it's also like currently done. Like there's not
Mhm.
going to be a fourth season forthcoming, so it's
Right.
like not like we could hype something up to whatever. Second part of this question from Easy Rider. Also, why Fallout coming out slow? Not complaining, just asking. In the works, Easy Rider. It's in the works. Adam, I don't know if you have any other insight other than that, but it's coming. We've watched all of season one, so yeah.
Days are coming. They'll be on. They're gonna be on Patreon first, and then
Okay,
I
great.
think what's today, Wednesday.
Yeah,
I have to leave for a trip on Sunday, so I'll be gone for a week. So if they're
yeah,
not out by Saturday, then they'll come out sometime next week, and Augustine will
okay,
upload them, and they'll be done.
for sure. Next one, Kyle Volti, $5 Canadian. I can't help but feel like the discourse coming from the really negative types boils down to why don't they put me in charge?
Yeah,
I don't even think it's that
yeah,
because I truly believe that if any of these guys, it's mostly guys, there's a couple of terrible women as well, but I think if any of these
there
guys
are.
honestly had any aspirations to do that,
Hmm.
they would talk about this stuff in a completely d they would they this would
Absolutely.
not be this is their career, this is their money-making career,
Yeah.
and it's also they are wrapped up in that ideology, and they like to get the feedback, the positive feedback from other people going, "Yeah, I agree with you." So that's what it is. If they were to be put in charge, they're like a dog chasing cars, they wouldn't know what to do with it if they got it, and it would deflate
It would
it
implode,
would.
and they'd be
Yeah,
fired in
yeah.
seconds.
Yeah, it was
So
like, it's from, like, South Park when Cartman kept saying, like, "Suck my balls," and the teacher was like, "Present them," and just, like, shut him down, and
yeah,
he's like, "Oh, I don't know what." So, like, yeah, if Kathleen Kennedy called one of these guys up and was like, "Yeah, I want you to come in for a meeting next week, and we'll talk what you think we should do."
yeah.
They wouldn't do it. They would be, "Oh, you'll never believe this. She called me," but they don't give a shit about Star Wars. That's not what it's
Mhm.
about. It's just they're terrible,
Yeah,
so sometimes you have to
yeah.
go, "Okay, present them."
I
And they
know.
got
Well,
nothing.
and it's also like going back to the conversation of like, being discouraged to watch stuff. It's also very discouraging being a creator online when, like I feel like we put in a lot of work to make our videos and do all that stuff and our reactions and our Patreon and all that. And
Yeah.
then you go on one of these YouTube channels that is like just so toxic and negative. And I'm like, how do you have how is it possible that 400,000 people agree with your tomfoolery? That is
Mhm.
crazy. What is wrong with
Mhm.
you people?
Mhm.
But,
Again,
they're
it's
out
just
there.
it keeps going back to tech bros like
Yeah.
Elon Musk have ruined the world. They have gamed the system. It's all the algorithm. That's all we're chasing. So when you have a nice, pleasant video, YouTube goes, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah.
But when you have a
Oh, you
video
oh,
starring a white
oh,
supremacist, they're like, great. Look at all the engagement this is getting. This must
you
be very popular.
you're happy? You
Yeah.
like making videos?
I guess we'll
No,
bury
no,
your
no, no,
video
no, no,
then.
no, no, no.
Yeah.
No, 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 no. No, there's no room for you here. No, no, no.
uh,
Go home.
oh my gosh. KP Dubs, $10 super chat. One thing that can ruin a show faster than anything else is your own expectations. I try to go in with no expectations and just wait to see what happens. Your thoughts? I like the first two episodes. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. I think we are on the exact
Yeah.
same page, KP
Yeah.
Dubs. I think that's a healthy, you know, um, like perspective. But
Mhm.
again, that doesn't mean, especially now, the fun thing about the world we live in now, there's so much stuff in the
Yeah.
past. We can talk about the entirety of phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We can talk about, the Star Wars sequel trilogy because all 3 of
Mhm.
those movies came out. We can talk about the TV show Clone Wars in its
Yeah.
entirety. I like having conversations about the whole thing once it's all kind of wrapped up.
Yeah.
Um, so
I mean,
yeah.
I agree, and I think that's how I kind of because it really does feel like some people go into everything with an expectation, and in my brain, that doesn't really I don't get it because I don't go into projects like that. Even
Mhm,
like the movie that I saw yesterday, In a Violent Nature,
mhm,
um, I walked into that and I had seen the trailer and I thought, okay, I know what the trailer is, so I'm just kind of expecting whatever the trailer said the movie is, and it was that. It was just a lot of that, and some of it worked and some of it didn't. So I think it's so. I think it's very dangerous to go into every Marvel, Star Wars, DC, especially these like big property things, oh, it's got to have Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. It's got to have Hugh Jackman. It's got to have Danny DeVito Penguin. It's got to have, like, no, it doesn't. It literally
Mhm.
does not. It literally doesn't have to have anything that you're saying. It
Yeah.
probably won't too. Like
Yeah.
it has not happened many times where people have said, I really wanted to have this, and it's actually had it. I think
Mhm.
Spider-Man No Way Home maybe was like one of
Mhm.
the few, maybe Endgame, like Cap, yelling Avengers Assemble or picking up
Mhm.
Mjolnir,
Mhm.
like some of those very like, for lack of a better term, they're slightly fan servicey moments, but like you wanted those because you felt like there was a reason to have them because they would tease them throughout the series and stuff.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, just sometimes though, I'm like, yeah, you're probably not going to see Mace Windu show back up in a Star Wars. Like, quit asking for things that are probably an impossibility.
Right. Right.
So I don't
But then
know.
again, unless the person is having the larger conversation of like, look, Boba Fett came back from the dead. There's an
Yeah,
entire storyline, so it's like there are things that could happen that would be cool, but don't let that expectation ruin the thing for you. Don't do that. Movies Clockford has a $5 super chat. Saw the first 2 episodes of Acolyte. Good start, and I hope the mystery story gets more complex in the next episodes. I'm a sucker for a good mystery story. It's a classic TV format. There's a reason for that. And I agree. And I'm really into these characters and
yeah.
into that mystery story. And another
Hmm.
thing that I think has been interesting, Adam, I want to talk to you about is like, even if we, for example, went into some spoilers, the show itself had a mystery, but like pretty immediately answers something, right? In the first episode that we're like, "Oh, I think we all kind of thought maybe that was gonna be stretched out a little bit." And they kinda went right to it. And they got to a point in the show with the characters and where the story was going where I was like, "I don't know where this is going." Which is very interesting. So,
Yeah, that
I
surprised
think
me
yeah,
too. That surprised me
yeah,
too because I was also kind of expecting the things that are revealed. I to me those feel like things that would be revealed maybe in episode 4, episode
right.
5, as we get
"Oh,
closer
what's
to the
going
finale.
on?
Yeah, like
Oh,
how
what's
is this all
going on?
tied
Oh,
together?
that's what's going
Holy
on."
shit, that's
They
how it's tied together. And
they
they just
tell
kind
you
of
exact yeah.
they tell you. And I have seen some people say, some of the reviews that are like, normal people have said maybe for me it would have worked better if it was later on. But the thing that I think I mentioned in the second episode was I think they did that because they just wanted to get that out of the way and just put it in the
Yeah.
forefront, because then people would spend too much time worrying about the mystery of how these things are
Yeah.
connected rather than the actual story itself. But we have 6 episodes to see whether or not that actually pays off. But I'm
Did you
along for
see
that ride.
Adam, did you see the HBO show Westworld?
I've seen a couple of episodes of season 1, but I have not seen the whole
Oh,
thing.
so I'll spoil something for you right now, and for the chat, I'm going to spoil it something because I think it's very interesting. But and I think the same sort of thing happened with WandaVision. If you do a mystery in a show, it needs to be maybe nearly impossible to solve, almost like who shot Mr. Burns from The Simpsons from 30 years ago, because it was like the baby shot Mr. Burns. Nobody could have guessed that it was the baby. Um, because in WandaVision, with its mystery of the first few episodes, like, what the hell is going on with this TV?
Hmm.
With the da, 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 da? I think that led to on the internet maybe a little too much speculation, and it's like it's a little bit more of a simple story than everyone might be thinking. Adults are attacking this when really this is kind of an all ages show. It's a Marvel show. It's going to be for kids, like 10-year-olds and stuff are going to need to be able to watch this and be able to wrap their heads around it. Westworld, however, in its first season had a character played by, I think the actor's name is Jimmy Simpson, great actor, and then another character played by Ed Harris. And Ed Harris's character was like the bad guy. He was the black hat. He was the cowboy going around like killing people and stuff. And pretty immediately in the first week of that show coming out, because it was this very mysterious, kind of like mystery box show of like, can you solve what's kind of happening and what exactly is going on? The internet was like, "Oh, Ed Harris is the Jimmy Simpson character, but years from now in the future." And they're like two different time periods, and it's working because all the other supporting characters and stuff and Jeffrey Wright, they're all robots. So they're going to look the same here versus 30 years later they're going to look the same. The internet got it like that. And then if you were watching the show week to week, it was kind of like the show is taking too long to either deny or confirm this. It's taking, it almost took the whole season before the season 1 reveal of like, guess what? The Ed Harris, the bad guy, he's been this guy. And the internet was like, yeah, we know. We overthought it and
We've been
figured it
there,
out.
done
And
that,
it was
baby.
we've been there, done that. So I'm like, that's also tricky to do. But if there is a show that is this sort of like heightened sci-fi adult, meaning not for kids, like Westworld was like rated R and it was for
Right.
adults. Adults are smart. They're going to, and the internet's going to attack this from every angle. They're going to figure it out. So either you need it to
Yeah.
be airtight and impossible, like a
Mhm.
Scooby-Doo mystery where it's like, it was such and such because we found residue of the mud. And you're like, you never talked about the mud, or like, just like a random thing, or get that shit out of the way and move
Mhm.
forward with your story and it's a balance, and
Yeah.
let the audience know, hey, you're right. You thought you were thinking about this for an episode. Next episode, you're right. But
Mhm.
now let's move. We want to tell you the story.
Yeah, and that's much easier to do in movies because in movies it's a one and done. So you can set all that up. It's revealed by the end. You're not there's
Oh,
people are generally not like live tweeting, so it's just a different experience with shows. Yeah,
yeah,
that's the unfortunate thing is especially with having so many people online on forums, on websites, Reddit, all that sort of stuff,
right.
dissecting all of these shows. It is really hard. And there are people that are very savvy with storytelling. There are people who maybe are not as savvy, but they can also help put together the clue. So just nowadays when shows are such a engaging type of storytelling, I guess engaging in the sense that like, yeah, a lot of people are just talking about them. Yeah, it's you got to work really, really, really hard because that was kind of my thought about
Yeah,
the Acolyte yesterday was they're just ripping the band-aid off because I don't want to spend
yeah.
4 weeks going, is it a twin? Is it a clone? Is it a
Right, right,
vision?
right, right,
Is it a
right,
this? Is it a
right.
that? Is it a who? Is it
Yeah,
a there? I just move on and let's
and
focus
they did
on
it.
the story. And I did it, and I kind of appreciate it for just revealing what we
Yeah.
thought and not having us speculate for 4 weeks.
I'm stupid, and the show made me feel smart because we were watching it, and I was like, "Guys, I think it's this." And literally, like 5 minutes later, they're like, "It's this," and I was like, "Yeah, I'm smart boy. I figured it out." Like everybody, I'm dumb.
uh,
It's kind of like
uh,
if the movie The Book of Eli came out
right.
as a TV show, and the first episode drops and it's like 45 minutes long, people would be like, Denzel's blind.
Yeah.
His character's blind.
Yeah.
They got a whole season. They're going to reveal it at the end. Like, you can't, you
Holy
kind of
shit,
sucks
he's
the fun out of
blind.
it.
Yeah, we
Yes.
know.
Yeah. Kind of exactly.
Yeah, you watch the
Um,
movie though, and then you get to the last, well, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes,
yeah.
you're like,
You're
oh,
like,
oh
oh,
shit, he's
shit.
blind.
Cool.
Whoa.
That's so cool. Oh, yeah. Okay.
I
Um,
know. So I mean, and
I,
that's kind of like that's the evolution of storytelling in the modern world is it's so accessible and everyone is online talking about it. Any slight minor little
yep.
thing that they'll nitpick,
Yep.
they will. Flames in
Yep.
space. I don't know.
Yeah. Sound in space. What are we doing here, guys? It's all fake. It's all fake. Okay. Swords made of pure light that
Yeah.
stop at some
The
point.
coolest sound in
Um,
Star Wars is
it's
probably Boba
cool.
Fett dropping bombs in episode 2,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it sucks up
It's
sound and then
cool.
spits sound back
It's,
out and we're
it's
in
cool.
space. Who gives a
There,
shit?
yeah. You can't lose sight of the fact as a cynical adult that a big purpose of the point of Star Wars is like, this is cool. Look at this cool thing.
Yes. I know. I
Oh my
know.
God.
Come
You don't think
on.
it's cool? Stop. You just got to stop.
Yeah.
Kyle Volte with another $10 Canadian, reaffirming what we're talking about, said, that's why I say that it's not superhero or Star Wars or Star Trek fatigue. It's toxic fandom fatigue. Yeah, well said. I agree. I agree with that. Okay, let
Yeah,
me
and
scroll
and that's
down.
what's really hard is like I for the longest time I loved talking about this stuff anytime, anywhere, any
Mm-hmm.
place.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, now especially on Twitter, I kind of stick to talking about other
Sucks.
things. And then I talk
Yeah,
about
it
things that
sucks.
nobody else is watching and I'm like, "All right, well this is getting no engagement because it's not a Marvel,
Yeah.
DC or a Star Wars."
Mm-hmm.
But, it's like a very small audience, like how many people that follow me went to go see In a Violent Nature? Probably
Mm-hmm.
not many, which is
Yeah.
fine, like if horror's not your cup of tea, then it's not your cup of tea, but I don't have that audience.
Speaking of, you know what I just watched? I was so late on it, but I watched the
Mm.
Netflix movie They Cloned Tyrone with John Boyega, Jamie
Oh, is
Foxx,
that
and Tiana
good?
Paris. Bro, it was great. It was
Cool.
so fun. It was
Nice.
so fun. I was really, really delighted by that movie. So if you haven't seen it, yeah, you know, maybe there's somebody right now watching that's either agrees or even disagrees, but it's just like, I was like, "Should I go to the" No, I'm not gonna go to the internet to talk about this movie. I'm so behind. I'm so
Yeah.
late. But I think that's why I let when I want to, only when I want to, not when I feel bad about a movie, but Letterboxd is
Mhm.
great. The
Yeah.
Letterboxd app lets you go toot toot Instagram stories, and I'm like, "Yeah." I posted my little, I also saw last week, I saw The First Omen, and I was like, "Yeah, that movie was pretty fucking cool." And I just
Oh, you
posted that
liked it?
little.
Cool.
Yeah, dude, it was gnarly, dude. That one shot.
Oh my god, dude.
You know which one I'm talking about?
I loved
Do you know
that
which one I'm
movie.
talking about?
The
That
one
shot?
shot? Oh, I
Bro,
think I know what you're
bro,
talking about.
with the claw?
What?
Bro.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
Bro, my
Apparently some
my
people
our
threw up in the theater and I was like, "Yeah, I'm into this. Gimme, gimme,
uh,
gimme."
our pal Clark Wolf, I was chatting about the movie with her after. She's a big fan of the movie, and she was
Yeah.
like, "Hector, I wanna remind you, that's a Disney film you saw." And
Yeah,
I was
it
like,
is.
"Damn, it is." And there was a claw coming out of a
Hoo-ha.
woohoo. It was crazy,
It
dude. That
was,
shit was
man.
crazy.
Well, and like
Oh, man.
that is like the one thing that makes me happy that 20th Century and Searchlight Pictures still exist. Poor
Mhm.
Things, Kinds of Kindness, Alien
Yeah.
Romulus, Prey, Predator, The
Kingdom of
First
the Planet of the
Omen,
Apes.
Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Disney would not put those movies out. And so it's like thank God
Yeah.
at least
Fine.
those parts of that studio remained so we could still get things that
Mhm.
are not just, all ages or four quadrant or whatever. But you should
Mhm.
check out Immaculate and let me know if you like that. That's the movie with Sydney
I want
Sweeney.
to. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
curious about that. I
Yeah. I
remember
did
that
a double feature of that and I liked watching them back
interesting,
to back. There's some
interesting.
similarities and there's differences.
Yeah, I remember that, Abby and I had only watched my girlfriend and I had only watched the original The Omen,
Mm.
directed by Richard Donner
Yeah.
from 1976 or something. We only watched it earlier this year, and we were like, "This movie's so good. Oh my god, it's
I
crazy. This
love The
movie's
Omen.
so good." And then right after we watched it, I think I was, like, looking up how many Omen movies there are or something, and saw that there was a new one coming out, The
Mhm.
First Omen. And when you watch the original, it's crazy because there's such a messed up, interesting backstory, right? To how
Yeah.
the Gregory Peck character gets the
Damien.
adopted baby.
Yeah.
And so, like, my girlfriend and I were so zoned in, we're like, "Oh, that movie could be really cool." And then couple months later, we were watching a movie in the theater and a trailer started playing, and I was like, "Oh my god, I think this is The First Omen," but it was Immaculate with Sydney Sweeney, and I was
Oh,
like,
that's funny.
"Oh, interesting that these are both coming out around the same time," like,
Yeah.
and I kept turning to Abby during Immaculate, even though I think I saw Sydney Sweeney, and I was like, maybe I was confused and thought she was in The First Omen, but I kept turning to
Mm.
her during that trailer and going, this girl's gonna turn into a jackal. She's gonna give birth and turn into a jackal because that's what happens in the original The
Yeah.
Omen. That's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
that's the
yeah,
story. I was like, dude, this movie's gonna be crazy because she's gonna give birth and turn into a jackal. I was so convinced.
yeah. Oh
um,
my god.
Spoiler: that's not what happens in the new movie, The First Omen. But
Yeah.
it's fun to watch that movie and go, dude, is she gonna turn into a jackal?
Yeah,
It's
right?
it's
Right?
crazy. She
Yeah,
gonna turn to a little
it's
jackal.
super good. Well,
Yeah.
I got a little bit of a roasting because I watched Ice Age for the first time last weekend.
You did got a bit of a roast. No, no, no. It was a friendly ribbing. It was a friendly
uh,
yeah. To be fair,
to be
that
fair.
is that is a I think it's a movie, an animated movie that is further down the scale of popularity of anything Disney, anything Pixar, anything
Mm,
DreamWorks. And I know people love Ice Age, but also Ice Age after that first movie has a sort of a reputation that's like the Minions, where it's like, oh, they're
mm,
all kind of for kids. They all kind of get progressively not as good. They're just very like typical animated movie with celebrity voices. In fact, I think
mhm.
the third or fourth Ice Age movie, they have like a musical number in it. like characters sing and dance. And if you have just seen the first Ice Age, that's so far
It's so
tonally, right?
jarring.
It's very jarring. So like to be fair, I think that first one still really holds up and it's a really
I
great
loved it.
movie.
I thought it was so
It's
good.
it's so good. Just everything top to bottom I think is really great in that film. And then Ice Age 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 like kind of not ruin it but just like, "Oh, okay. It's not something you gotta it's not like it was an Iron Giant situation where it was just a
Right.
one movie and was like a little secret masterpiece. It was a
Yeah.
successful animated movie
Franchise.
franchise, and they're not,
Yeah.
and the same with and I think it's Blue Sky, and I
It
could be
is.
mistaken. It's Blue Sky, which then did like robots and
Mhm.
did, a couple of other ones and then got shut down.
Yeah.
Um, but whereas Surf's Up is Sony Pictures Animation, that was my favorite before Spider-Verse, obviously. And that's another animation studio that's like, I'm not surprised if anybody hasn't seen any of those movies.
Mhm.
Warner Animation Group has a bunch of animated movies that are like kind of hit and miss. Like they did like Space Jam 2 technically. They also did Storks, which I was
Mhm.
really hoping was going to be good and I thought it was kind of really uneven and bad. And then Kubo and the Two Strings is from Leica.
I
And
love
that
Kubo and the Two Strings.
those films are cinema. So
Yeah.
that's but those are all movie studios. It's like I don't want to get on anybody's case if they haven't seen those movies. They're not Disney
Yeah.
Pixar. Do you know what I mean? They're not
Mhm.
Shrek.
Yeah.
So you're fine.
Yeah,
You're
and
good.
everyone knows that I have just, like, so many blind spots with those sorts of movies. That's just
That's fine.
that was just my
That's
growing up.
fine.
Listen, our VHS, like, cassette, drawers had things like Porky's, National
Yep.
Lampoon's Vacation,
Yep.
RoboCop.
Yep.
I
But
was
listen,
watching things I shouldn't have been watching, but, that's
I
how it
know.
was.
But listen, it's kind of really great though because you're like you are a full-grown man, so you
Mhm.
can fully appreciate. You said you got emotional watching Ice Age, and I'm like,
Yeah,
good, because that's a great. That's what they're going for.
yeah.
And I think that if you ever decided to try to expand that, you could easily look up a list somewhere of like, here's the best animated movie, here's the 100 best animated movies or the 50 best animated movies. And you could
Yeah.
just start going through and being like, well, I
Oh,
haven't seen
totally.
this. Let me watch it. It's just like when we did Ghibli during the strike,
Mhm.
seeing those movies and they're not American animated movies. And
Yeah.
they were harder to access. You see those as an adult and you really appreciate everything in Porco Rosso,
Oh,
you know?
totally.
Like it's a great
Akira
movie
was,
for
like,
kids.
fucking mind-blowing.
That's on another level, but, like, even My
Yeah.
Neighbor Totoro, we were
Oh,
like,
yeah.
"That's a kid's movie, basically," but, I
Yeah,
think that
well,
as
it's
an adult, you just can appreciate it, you know?
totally, and it was funny because watching that movie, it's not as my adult cynical brain, but it's my adult brain thinking that, like, this is too good to be true because as we're watching My Neighbor Totoro, I'm thinking, "This is gonna take a turn for the worst
Right,
somewhere.
right, right.
Someone's gonna die, someone's gonna get
Yeah,
kidnapped. Totoro's gonna end up
yeah.
being some, like, alien monster that eats, like, something."
Yeah,
No,
what did you
it's just
think,
wholesome and
Adam,
fun and loving.
what did you think about Ice Age as you were watching it or before you watched it? Did you think it was gonna be bad, good, sad? Were you surprised at, like, how it
Um
turned out? Like, what was your experience before and during watching it?
Going into it, I didn't really have any expectations. I just knew that people had generally liked Ice Age quite a bit. So I guess I did go into it thinking like, I think I'm gonna like this just because pop culturally I've heard that people enjoy this film.
Right.
So, and then the movie starts and we get 15, 20 minutes into it. And I'm like, I'm vibing with this movie. Like, I like the setup. I like the animation. I like the performances. I think it's silly. It's quirky. It also is like serious. It's got good moments of action with the saber-toothed tigers and stuff. So,
Yeah.
but the one thing that did surprise me, and it surprised my girlfriend too, and we would be sitting on the couch and
Yeah.
it would be like, they'd be like, icicles kill a character. And you're like,
Yeah. What? Oh, this isn't Disney. Yeah, it's
what the
like
hell? And then we keep watching, and
this
they're like, your breath smells like ass, and I'm like, what?
yeah, yeah. They
What?
they push it a little bit. They put
They do.
DreamWorks tries to push it. Some of these other movie studios push it.
Yeah.
I always feel the thing I remember about Ice Age is like the dynamic between the Ray Romano,
Mhm.
John Leguizamo, Dennis Leary characters
Yeah.
is pretty great. That
It's
those three are
great.
like pretty great.
Yeah.
And the humans, even though they look kind of weird and lumpy for
Mhm.
CG, humans. Like that kid was very cute,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
the scene that hits is where you learn the backstory of Manny and his mammoth family. I was
Oh
like,
my
this is
god.
so
I looked at my
sad.
girlfriend, I was like, "What the hell? Why am I
Yeah.
emotional? What's happening?"
Oh, oh
I
man.
know.
Yeah,
And I mean, even the moment
great movie.
where you don't see the fate of the mother of the child,
Yeah,
I'm
dude.
like, "Dude, did she drown? Did she just die? Like, what the fuck just
Yep.
happened?
And
Help
she sort of
me."
like sent the baby knowing that
Yeah,
the wolves were gonna,
and then
and
Manny
then
looks
she
back and she's
disappears.
gone, and I'm like,
Oh,
what? What do you mean?"
that's great,
Yeah,
man.
so I
That's
really
great.
liked the movie ended, and I was like, "Wow," I was surprisingly I really connected to it emotionally. I loved the characters,
Mhm.
the performances, the animation's
Yeah,
great. That squirrel with the acorn is, like, one of the best bits throughout that whole movie. It's
such a
a
good
nice
bit.
way to just sort of, like, break whatever deep emotion you're feeling, and you can kind of,
Yeah,
like, breathe a sigh of relief, have a
yeah.
laugh, and then go back into the story. I felt like that was so appropriately placed
I
throughout.
think I think that's what they intended for the minions, but it doesn't work for me.
Mm.
But that little scrat is he is an international treasure, that little dude.
Oh, yeah, and I
I love
remember
that guy.
and even though I hadn't seen Ice Age, I remember all the previews and him being in all the previews. So then when that
Yeah.
Blue Sky video came out where they basically were, like, announcing that the studio was
Yeah,
closing and
sad,
he
dude.
finally got his
Sad.
acorn, I was like, "Dude, this is
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
Yep.
What?"
Even though you hadn't seen those movies, you still could
Yeah.
appreciate what that meant. Yeah,
Yep.
totally.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
it's a great movie. I own the first Ice Age on Blu-ray. I don't think I own any of the rest of them, and
Mm.
I wouldn't care to, but if they ever did do like a fatty box set of all the movies, and they had the 3D discs, which is never gonna happen, never in the world, because a couple of the movies later came out in 3D.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, but, all right, great. That was great. Cool, so we talked about Ice Age, we talked about Star Wars, The Acolyte, we talked about solving toxic fandom. It was a productive night. If anybody's got any
Uh,
other, questions or super chats they wanna sneak in here, get them in. I also like, people were talking about they cloned Tyrell, and they said that they really loved it, so because John
mhm.
Boyega is great, Jamie Foxx is great in it, Tiana Paris, they're all 3 of them so good and so funny,
Yeah.
especially Jamie Foxx and especially Tiana Paris. They're hilarious, dude. They're so
Mm.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised with, like and maybe he has well, I guess I haven't seen that film, so John Boyega has been doing stuff, but I haven't seen all of it. But it does
Mhm.
seem like it's slowed down a little bit in the last couple of years, like one
Mm.
project here and there,
Yeah, could be.
but I like
Yeah,
seeing him and stuff. I really think he's
me
entertaining
too.
and he's got a great personality. So I hope that we get to see
Agreed.
him in more
Did you
things
see
in the next few years.
did you see, The Woman King?
Yeah.
That movie ruled, dude.
Oh,
That
yeah, so
movie's
that was
awesome.
just 2 years ago. So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
he had the
he's
supporting he was like the king of the
right.
woman
Yeah.
tribe, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
He was
yeah, yeah.
great, but, the star of that movie is definitely the Viola
Oh,
Davis of
come
it all.
on.
She's
Come on.
phenomenal.
Yeah, Viola Davis
And
is
she's next level. She
yeah,
is Meryl she's in the same level as Meryl Streep, but also she could kick anyone's ass. It's so cool. Uh,
absolutely.
not that Meryl couldn't, but Meryl couldn't. In the chat, somebody said, loving John Boyega. Speaking of John Boyega, also between the 3 leads of the Star Wars sequel movies, it does feel like Oscar Isaac is maybe the most sort of prolific. Like you see
Mhm.
Daisy Ridley in projects here and there, and she's kind of popping up in different things. And I know she's got a movie that's about to come out or just came out that is
Yeah.
apparently very good, and I'm very very looking forward to seeing it.
Mhm.
But somebody asked John Boyega, do you think he'll ever be back in Star Wars or maybe like in the MCU doing a Marvel movie or something? And my
Mm.
take has always been, if John wants to do it, he can do it.
Yeah.
If he and or conversely, if somebody at those companies has a great story that they want to tell that John would be amazing for, and they can talk to John, and John's excited about actually doing that, I would love that for John Boyega, including coming back as Finn, including
Mhm.
playing a character in a Marvel movie. I think would be great, but he does seem like after Star Wars, he's an actor who's less interested in that kind of stuff. I know he was in like Pacific Rim,
Yeah.
Uprising, but it doesn't seem like he's trying to get a bunch of other franchises. Chris Hemsworth is in every franchise movie. He's like that dude wants to be in all the you know what I mean? Like he wants to do
He got,
franchises,
like, 5 kids, so I don't blame him.
right? like Jason Momoa wants to be, anybody who goes from
Yeah,
a superhero to like Fast and Furious. I'm like, you want to be in all the stuff, but
totally.
Boyega doesn't do movies like that, which is
Right.
great, which is fine.
Mhm.
But if a producer or director or writer was like, John, let's take a meeting. Here's my pitch on Finn. Would you want to do this? And if not, what would you want to do? And I think
Right.
it could happen. I don't want to say never, never ever, but if he doesn't want to, then it's okay.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it really does come down to the pitch. I do think that his experience with Star Wars, just from what little I've kind of picked up on in interviews and discussions, I don't want to say that the experience was soured for him by the end, but I think
Yeah.
he definitely got to a point where he was like, cool, I feel like I've contributed everything that I could as an artist. And if
Right.
anything, in the eyes of either the fans or the studio or whoever, quote unquote, failed, then I don't think it was me. I think it was more so the writing, more so where they took the character. And that's not
Mhm.
really on John Boyega. That's the
Mhm.
responsibility of the writers and the directors to kind of figure out what that path is for that character. So if felt like he needed time away from Star Wars to maybe get back into the idea of doing something, whether it's a
Mhm.
spin-off series or a film that's set before or after the events of the sequel trilogy, I'm totally open for it as a fan. Like, but for me, it's all about, does John Boyega feel like he has anything left to say with that
Mhm.
character? And if it's not
Mhm.
Star Wars, then we know how Disney likes to work. They like to keep the family, people in the family, and they like to shift people
Yeah.
around from Marvel to Pixar to Star Wars to this to that. So it
Yeah.
would not surprise me in the least bit if John Boyega showed up in the MCU. I think if he has no interest in doing franchise stuff, then it's not likely that we'll see him pop up in DC unless something really rich came up. Like if, let's say,
Mhm.
it was like a Static Shock or a Cyborg or some kind of a character, even outside of
Mhm.
that maybe James Gunn presents something that has a lot of depth to it,
Oh,
then I
can you
think he would
imagine
do it for
Jon
sure.
Stewart? Can you imagine him as Jon
Oh, John
Stewart? Like, that
Stewart,
would
yeah,
be phenomenal. That he's such a good
absolutely.
actor, and his American accent is kind of perfect, dude.
It's
As
so
a
good.
British
Oh
actor,
my god.
I'm really picky as an American sometimes with
Yeah,
British actors doing his American accent is, like,
solid.
so good, so
Yeah,
good. Yeah, I
yeah.
agree. I think it would be great if he were the lead in, like, a Disney animated film, or a Pixar
Mhm.
animated like,
Yeah,
he could do that as well, like you're saying, sort of keeping actors like that in their stable of actors that they're using. He'd be great at
yeah,
that too.
yeah, I
Super
agree.
chat from KP Dubs. Mod did not put me up to this. What books are you currently reading or have read recently? And comics count. What did I just read? I've been reading Planet of the Apes books. I read like
Oh,
the
cool.
novelization of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which is very cool.
Oh,
And I
nice.
started and I'm working through the book that takes place between Dawn and War. So it's supposed to be the first time that Woody Harrelson's character goes into San Francisco because there's like
Mm,
a few years. I think there's like
yeah.
a year or three or something that takes place in between those movies. So like Woody Harrelson and like the remnants of the army come into San Francisco and they sort of fight it out. I don't think they ever meet, but they fight it out, and then things are going. I don't know where they're going to go, but then they end where
Hmm.
the apes and Caesar go further into the woods,
Yeah.
and then the story starts where they go and
Oh,
they try to
wow.
so, like, it's cool that they did a book that's the in between. I think is very,
Yeah.
very cool.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Uh,
I honestly have not been reading too much. I've been reading issues of American Cinematographer that I recently subscribed to.
nice.
I did pick up the Dune trilogy maybe like 2 3 months ago, so I haven't cracked into that yet. But that is kind of one of the things that I would
Oh,
like to
Dune.
read.
What's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
trilogy? Is it Messiah and then
It's Dune, Dune Messiah, and Children of Dune.
nice.
Yeah,
I still
yeah.
need to I've been wanting to do that but I asked Abby if she'd ever read Dune and if she wanted to. We might
Hmm.
listen to the audiobook together because she's never read it,
Mm,
but I read it, but I
yeah.
have not listened to an audiobook, and I also wanted to download the score to Dune Part 2. I haven't done that yet. I've got all
So
of Part
good.
1 locked and loaded, and I'm like, I'm ready to get Part 2, have my soundtracks, and then maybe
Hmm.
read Dune or listen to it and then read Dune Messiah and go from there and see
Yeah.
if I can get into it. So, we'll see.
I hope that show is good. I hope that show is good
I
about the Bene
know, I
Gesserit.
know, I know. That's it. Yeah. It seems like it's a good idea. It's a good pitch, you know?
Yeah.
If it's not good, is Dune dead in the water? Is it only Denis Villeneuve who could do it? Like, what does that mean? But if it's great, then great. Then
Yeah.
you got a franchise.
You got a franchise. You got a
Franchise.
franchise.
Speaking of
Anything
Oscar Isaac.
else?
No, somebody wanted us to ask about or talk about, I think it was Lo Rosario. All right, let's discuss Giancarlo Esposito. Who's he going to be in Captain America? Is he really Bushman, who's like a Moon Knight villain? Do you have
Interesting.
any thoughts on that, Adam? I mean, we spent the whole hour talking about we don't want to speculate, we don't want to ruin
Right.
this for ourselves. But
Listen,
did you hear Giancarlo and go, "Oh, I think it'd be cool if he were this Marvel character"?
I don't give a shit who Giancarlo Esposito is. You got Giancarlo Esposito. He's gonna be
Yeah.
great no matter what role he's in. And
Agreed.
it was actually funny when those pictures surfaced. I was scrolling through Instagram, and it was an old video from Do the Right Thing, and it's young Giancarlo Esposito, and he's like,
Oh yeah,
"Yeah, I'm like Italian on my dad's side, and I'm black on my mom's
yeah,
side." And I was like, it's so fascinating to see him because I only know Giancarlo Esposito from Breaking Bad onward. I know that there's movies that I've seen him in that I didn't even know it was him, but
yeah,
seeing him as like he must have been, I don't know, he must have been maybe 20s, 30s. Holy shit. I was like,
yeah,
this man he's a good looking dude in his 20s,
yeah,
30s. But
yeah.
yeah, like that's the only real thing that I was like, oh, Giancarlo Esposito, yeah, cool. Put him in Marvel, put him in Star Wars, put him in literally anything. I don't care. He's so good.
Yep,
He could
yep.
be a talking tree. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, that'd be great. I don't know how that would be good, but it would be good somehow. Yeah, he would be amazing. He'd be
Yeah,
amazing. So cool. All right. I think we got all the super chats. I think we are good to go, dude. So we gotta call it because we got kind of an early day tomorrow.
we do. We do. We have an early day
Yeah.
tomorrow. We're going to be doing some stuff in
Uh-huh.
the morning. That'll be a lot of fun. We'll talk about it tomorrow in the afternoon once the embargo lifts. But I think people will
Hmm.
enjoy it, and I think we're going to enjoy it. It's something different. It's something new. So that'll be a
Hmm.
lot of fun. Also, stay tuned. Our reactions for the Acolyte will be out very, 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 very soon for the first two
Great.
episodes, and then be on the lookout for the rest of Fallout. And yeah, if you know that there's a show coming out, the likelihood that we're watching it is moderately high, especially if it deals within the realm of superheroes or intellectual properties or whatever, but not the bear. I can
Yeah,
promise you we're not watching the bear,
I
but
know.
it's a good show. You should watch
Yeah,
it. It's really, really good.
yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, so there's plenty of other stuff to look out for. I will be gone next week. I'm going out of town
Cool.
for a shoot. And so these guys will be here manning down the
So
fort. I feel like
so excited
I
for
was
you, dude.
literally just gone, but it's already been a month.
Yeah,
But that went
yeah,
by really quick.
yeah. That's
So
crazy.
it'll be a lot of fun. You guys will have plenty to keep you busy, and these guys will take good care of you, and
Absolutely.
it'll be a lot of fun. So,
Yeah, have fun on your vacation, and it's a workcation too. But don't work
oh
too
yeah,
hard.
oh it will be. It'll be a lot of fun. But thank you
uh,
guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for hanging
yeah.
out. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.